Hi, David.
Hi, Sarah.
We're going to do something a bit different today because
Yeah.
we're going to record an activation together. And this is pretty interesting because we've not actually ever done this. So,
No, we haven't.
no,
Not,
I've
not.
David's done it. I do activations. He does them. We have probably a bit of a different style, but we're going to try to bring this together. And it's going to be an activation for your soul and your heart. David, do you want to say a bit about it?
I do. So when we talk about heart and soul, we often don't always associate heart and soul with one thing, your largest commodity of self. And your largest commodity of self, of course, is your spirit. So all spirit starts with um, your soul, your heart coming together and making sure that it's always 50-50, so that it's 50% of your soul is sending all these messages through to your heart, and your heart, the interpreter, is telling all these different bodies that you have and all different types of conscious, all different types of matter, um, all types of energetics, what is actually going on. So we can't have one one of our base commodities of self basically overruling everything. So often in the past, we've tended to just use our old physical heart, and it's only just a small proponent of who and what we are, because we have basically a spirit heart and a spirit soul. And before, the percentage ratio was basically then 90 to 95 or even 98% all heart, because it's like when we had a problem and things really got a bit uncomfortable, or the wheels actually fell off and we got burnout or something, or we get a lot of anxiety, or we just feel like we can't cope, it's been that's when it's been largely all mainly heart. And we can't then get the information from the soul to basically get all the real information and all the components that we need. So what Sarah and I are going to do today, we're going to in, show you that we're going to use 50-50. It's also so we can use neutral energy and find all the the mass or the components of you, and they immediately identify your strengths. And we're not looking for your weakness, we're looking for your strengths. We're looking for where you work optimally, and then we can strengthen everything else. But the biggest thing that we find is how to find self-truth. Okay. Once we find self-truth by using this optimum formula, if you like, of 50-50 of soul and heart, it means that our strength is invariably, it moves over a greater distance. So otherwise, we're a little bit like a building that's built like this. So our foundation isn't very wide. So as we make sure it's 50-50, we come back to here and we create this massive foundation, and we create a lot of groundings. We're also able to use universal energy so that the structure and the integrity of our self is then formulated through everything that we do, because we need to have an integrity in all our energy, all our conscious, all our mind, all our memory, all the different associated energies that we have. They also need to be integrous. And this means that we don't use um, over negative energy, because we know, of course, that's really forceful. But at the same time, we don't use over positive energy, which has been manipulative and pushy and pushed around. But unfortunately, because it had that tiny little symbol in the front about positive, we've all run with it and then gone with it. And then after the fact, it's like, oh God, now it's not what I need. It's not. And then because we're not really associating to what we need, yeah. So we're going to be finding that there's a lot of associated areas in our whole area that we aren't totally conscious of. So we'll be going to also remember that our everyday conscious that we work on is often a little bit thin, especially when we use this vast formula of just heart without any soul. So it's like the whole formula that we have isn't constructive. So our self-truth is only on a small level. So as soon as we change that, our self-truth, we find a lot of different variables so that our intuition and instinct can actually work a lot more freely. And everything has to be free. It's about everything has to be free, because if energy's over positive, over negative, it's very forceful, yeah. But when it's neutral, it allows this flexibility. And when we get that flexibility of energy and conscious and matter, good stuff happens. And then everything just in life just begins to evolve, because otherwise, in a way, we're de-evolving, we're detuning, we're destructuring. And when we destructure, our basically the base of ourselves falls apart a lot, and we often aren't aware as why, because that's when we get and that's when we feel a lot more emotions, a lot more feeling. So it's high emotional feeling, high reaction, or no reaction. And then we just go up and down, and that's not really good for anybody. We can't live like this. We've got to be able to live in a more refined, flexible way, and then life just goes on, and we find the best possibilities, and that's what it's all about, isn't it, Sarah?
Definitely. I thought I might just say a little bit about what an activation is. Um, I think of an activation a bit like when you germinate seeds. You have seeds and you have them in a packet, and they're not really doing anything, but they're seeds of life. They're alive even though they look dead. But when you put them in soil and you put water on them, they start to come alive. And at the beginning, when your seeds first are germinated, you don't see anything happening because it's happening under the soil, and it's only later they start to poke up through the soil, and then they turn into a plant or turn into a tree. And so I look at an activation rather like that. It's kind of germinating or activating energy within you. Those seeds are held within you. That potential, that possibility is already in you. It's yours. It doesn't belong to anybody else. It's not coming from me or from David. And the activation kind of wakes up aspects of you that maybe at the moment are static or sleepy or stagnant, or just haven't really been awakened in this lifetime. And sometimes you don't really notice that much at first, especially in your life. It's like this activation is something that then grows and becomes more and more alive over time, because it becomes a part of your makeup, a part of who you are. And then that flows into all the different things that you do, all the different parts of your life. So it's actually a very beautiful process to activate aspects of your energy or your consciousness. And the other thing that I think is really important to understand is that this is waking something up in you. I always see it that you are receiving exactly the energy or the input that you need, that's right for you. So it's not me or David saying, here you are, this is exactly what you need. It's like helping you to open to receive exactly what's right for you, which might be a little bit different. Each person who listens to this might have a bit of a different experience, but you're receiving that heart and soul activation that works precisely for you. I think it's important to understand that, because this is one of the amazing things about energy, is that it's like precisely tailored to your personal needs. We never have to do a one size fits all for when we're working this way. It's really beautifully made for you.
That's a really good definition, because the energy that we're promoting here is ultra subtle. Okay, it's not like bang, we hit you like a Mack truck. This is absolutely so very subtle, because if you change too much, you resist. Okay, so it's got to be very gradual. It's not. I sort of often think that people think that sometimes we're a bit like Harry Potter. We wave our wand and bang, you guys feel amazing, or something fantastic is going to happen. And it's not like that, because it's you guys doing the work. And so you receive it on the level of what you can basically sustain, because it's got to be very gentle and lead into it, as Sarah said. We can't just go bang like a Mack truck and it's quickly happening, because otherwise you'd spin out, or you'd short out actually, because you'd be getting too much power in your energy, and then you would resist the change, and then every time you tried to change, it'd be harder and harder. So we're very, very conscious of this. It has to be ultra, ultra subtle, and then it just moves gradually, 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 and it all basically works up until we can generate a lot more energy within ourselves, a lot more power within ourselves, and then our conscious just shifts, which means also we connect to a lot of different areas simultaneously, and then we can coordinate a lot of different areas of life. So first we coordinate a few different areas of life that we just sometimes will focus on, and sometimes it could be on a subconscious level, and then all of a sudden we notice it. But there's all these little different levels. So especially when we work on your everyday conscious level, it needs to be supported, and we use our subconscious levels to just support what is happening in everyday life, and bit by bit then it just becomes more gradual. Everything just becomes more refined, and it just becomes more easier as we get used to it too.
Okay, are we
So
ready?
I think so. I think that's enough that we have to say, well and truly.
All right. Well, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes and to allow yourself to become quieter inside. It's just like you're creating a space inside you where there's quietness, where things can happen. And there's very little that you need to do here. Just to stay quiet, to be spacious, and to allow this activation to take place within you, so that you experience your heart and your soul working together.
We're simply going to generate a lot of different tolerances that we have in our body, and to just create a larger tolerance now, just shift your feet very gradually. It's as if you're walking on whatever your feet are on. So they just sort of move forwards and backwards, just gently, just a few times. And we're beginning to create, and you can hold them still now as we begin to create a deeper grounding. For some people who've worked with us previously, you may even notice that it's similar to moving down in an elevator very gently, because we're trying to find all the universal energy that is very purposeful, productive, and adds potential. Essentially, we're beginning to bring a little bit of power, a little bit of integrity of that power, and gently, gently motivating the energy that sits within the soul, sits within the purpose of your soul, so that it knows it is fine to generate, to accomplish, and to broaden your perspective, that your soul is the imperative part of your entire body matter. And as it contributes, is highly gentle, highly productive, the most valuable asset of yourself is now capable of moving, allowing direct direction to that most beautiful spirit heart that you have, and allow it to then form very intuitional, instinctive nature that just opens potential for each and every one of us.
Maybe you can sense an aliveness, something that is waking up, that is rich and yet simple at the same time. Maybe you can sense your heart, not that strong physical heart, but this beautiful, delicate, powerful spirit heart. Maybe you can sense your heart and your soul in communion with each other, like two parts of one part, and how this holds the center of you, the essence of who you are, the expression of your spirit, of your aliveness, and the center of your presence.
As we begin to connect to all that is of one, because while we are bringing the soul, while we're bringing the heart together as one, we now digress a little and motivate our whole energetics and consciousness as one whole entire body, not two separate bodies. The generation of your purpose, potential, slowly digresses as we open our foundations, as we now reform, refunction, and realign, only using the universal formula that is of your potential. This creates an evolved gratitude, compassion, thankfulness, in tune with the harmonies, and creates a new magnetics. These magnetics allow a polarity so that we can now find new conclusions that are very gentle, very supple, very meaningful. And they allow our whole entire body to regenerate and repurpose and find our potential without the force of others. We begin to use our individuality because this is us. It is your own individuality that counts in life. This is how we create our own direct direction of life, because this needs to be a living life matter of our own true self, finding a free wisdom, a free outcome, free form and function of whom we are. This is how we find the ultimate form of life.
So this is a time and a place to experience yourself. This is you. From the heart of your being out into all the expression of your being. From the inner experience to the outer experience. This is where you find courage to live. And to share who you are with others generously. This is where you find what matters for you, for your life, and for your contribution. It's right here, so simple. So present. So tangible. So alive. And in touching it, you know it.
As we begin to touch all that we know, we refine the innermost that is of the self. This innermost is coming out. We find many reflections of ourselves that have been sitting a little external, and reconnect to them very gently. It is a magnetics of yourself, a polarity of yourself. As it reconnects, as it redefines, you find a little bit more purpose, a little bit more potential, a little bit more presence. It is so gentle, it is so purposeful. We regenerate, rejuvenate, revitalize what is a very complex body to be used simply. We find all the multiples of what is within our soul, within our heart, because each and every heart is a conglomerate. Each and every soul is a conglomerate. Simply this means we are of an enormous magnitude. We find multiple purposes, multiple outcomes, and reform them. We find a very simple, direct direction of all these areas of ourself to find one direction. Refining ourselves, to find the absolute appreciation, gratitude, compassion, and thankfulness of whom we are, never to be separate from it, only regenerating all that can come of this evolved purpose of self. We are eternally grateful with an evolved gratitude and open to compassion that is now of an immense flexibility, sustainability, purpose, and potential. To always regenerate, rejuvenate, revitalize, using the diversity of who we are, what we are, because this evolved matrix of self only uses the purpose of the intuitive, instinctive purpose and potential of who we are. We now move into a new purpose of a new now, never focusing just on the past, but all that can become accomplished as we move forward, using the resources of ourselves. This is the ultimate self, as we find the strength, and we refine all strengths simply by finding what is the truth of self. The self-truth is one of our strongest and most formidable components of self. It must always be followed. It must always be used. It is the center of our absolute being, using our soul, using our heart, and using all commodities of self. Simply, we are of this life, finding the foundations of all that we can be, and so also please. In the name of all life, so it is.
Thank you.
If everybody could just bring your hands now to a prayer position, and we'll just lock that in. Because very gently, you're using multiple levels of conscious mind and memory that we may have disassociated from. We'll just clasp your hands very gently on our chest. Move it straight back to a prayer position. And many of you may now find that you're beginning to feel like you're in an elevator and just coming back up. While you're in this elevator position, you bring all the optimum purposes of self back to be realized as we move back to our chest, clasping on our chest, finding all realizations of reality that sit within the potential of only using a balanced heart and a balanced soul. As we move our hands back to a prayer position and we lock this back in, finding grounded purpose, grounded efficiency, eliminating all influences that are not of this grounded facility of self. We move our hands back to the chest, clasping. Again, we find revised purposes, potentials of all that is of ourself. Move back to a prayer position, lock it all in, and we finish simply by knowing that we are of this evolved self. We lock in the purpose. We use this whole and true immaculate potential of self, all simply is. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.